Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the Leading from the Middle podcast. This is a podcast for middle managers who want to develop themselves, develop their teams, and improve their results. Prepare to be inspired because today I have a conversation with life transforming trainer, author, and app designer Raymond Riopel in the building today. And you will feel his energy coming across. But specifically, he talked about a bunch of things, but he talked about his book, Success Left a Clue. He talked about how you get past being overwhelmed as a leader and what are the four currencies of life. I got to tell you, he talked about a lot more. You don't want to miss a second of this. Let's get at it. Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Leading from the Middle podcast. This is the podcast for middle managers who want to develop themselves, develop their teams, and improve their results. And what better way than to listen to this man that's here today, listen to his story, listen to his advice, and really take advantage of him after you listen to this podcast in a few different ways that I'll let him get to in just a bit. So without further ado, I want to introduce life transforming trainer, author, app designer, Raymond Riopel. I said that, because he teased me earlier. Anyway, Robert, welcome to the podcast. How you doing, sir?
Oh, Kenny, I'm so happy to be here. And I would tease anybody? Come on. That's not my way of doing things. But I can tell that you're a person that likes to have fun.
Yes.
And that's one of the things why, just already I'm picking up your energy. I can tell there's a lot of similarities you and I have, except for you have way too much nicer hair than I do. I'm being so aerodynamic. But I believe life is too short not to have fun.
Oh, I agree.
Too many serious people on this planet. Like, are you kidding me?
Oh my goodness. Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And I want to hear your backstory. I want to start there because I do think it's a story that may have had a little bit of hardship there for a while, but I get the sense that you just really serve with such joy with people every day. And you have just been so open about sharing your story. So I want to hear your backstory and what's led you to do what you do now.
Well, for me, growing up, I'm in central Alberta in Canada. And, as I mentioned, as we were getting ready for this call, just came back through another snowstorm. The groundhog said we were going to have an early spring. Ain't happening around here. So, but getting back here, because in central Alberta, growing up, very poor family, we were taught that when it comes to work, look, work hard, find a job that is going to give you security and it's going to pay you, and then stick with it, whether you like it or not. That's how number one, you support your family, whatever needs to be done. And that's great. And that's exactly what I did. And Kenny, I'm one of the many, many, many ways I'm blessed. My wife and I, as an example, we met when we were 13 and we started dating when we were 16. We got married when we were 19. And this year we celebrated our 34th anniversary.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Now, don't do the math of how old I am, please. Okay. and newly married, I'm on my third job already because I was laid off from the first two because they were being shut down. So imagine my shock when I come back to work after a week off to finally have a honeymoon months later from after our wedding. And I walk into the factory I'm working in and they go, hey, come on into the office. I wanted to let you know we're shutting the factory down. You were laid off as of Friday. Wow. And I'm like, you couldn't have told me before I went and spent money on a holiday. And they're like, oh, we didn't know. And my BS meter went up and I'm like, and I was upset. And because this was a huge corporation, I saw myself working for 40 years with them. I've been working my way up. I was in now middle management because I had started in the factory, working in the quality control area. Because I knew I wanted to work with this company for so long, I did the extra work. I went to some evening school to learn accounting and that. They promoted me into the shipping receiving department and from there into inside sales, and I became middle management. And so I thought, I'm here. This is, I see myself being a general manager. Mm-hmm. So that was a real shock when they laid me off. But probably the biggest lesson I got from that, Kenny, was no matter how big the company is, I'm just another number. Mm. And if I wanted any kind of success in my life, I had to take control of that.
Mhm.
Now, when I was laid off from that company, our economy here was in Alberta, we go through oil booms and we go through oil busts.
Oh,
And
wow.
I love a bumper sticker, one of my favorite ones you see on a lot of big trucks. It says, "Lord, please let there be another oil boom. I promise not to piss it away this time." Because and it almost is like 8-year cycles. And people, when we go back into a bust, they seem so shocked. They're like, "How did this happen?" It happened 8 years ago too, and 8 years before that. And so it's a cycle that we see. And so there was no real work when I was laid off. So I, again, newly married, you do what you need to do to take care of your family. I took a job that I didn't consider a real job. I started delivering pizzas for Domino's Pizza. Now I'm having more fun. I'm actually making more money to drive around, meet people, listen to music. And I'm like, this is kind of cool. And because I was having so much fun with it, I ended up becoming a manager of a store. My wife then became my assistant manager. And we started going into our conditioning, open to close 7 days a week, because we know how to work hard.
Mhm.
We know how to do that. And we were a year and a half roughly into being managers when all of a sudden that fear came back in, because my franchisee came in and announced, he said, "I'm getting out of Domino's Pizza. I've put the 2 stores up for sale." And we'd been in Domino's now management long enough, for a year and a half. We'd seen a few stores around us get sold. And we knew the first thing that happened is the new owners came in with their own management team. And the managers were let go because they wanted to turn things around with their own team. And so I went into panic mode, and I'm like, okay, we've got to call the other franchisees here in the city, see who needs a manager, a management team, because now it's going to be my wife and I losing our income. And I'm venting and I'm like frustrated. My wife hears me out and she eventually goes, "Are you done?" And I'm like, "What do you mean, am I done?" And she goes, "You're obviously not done. Come on, get it out." And I finished venting and I'm like, "Oh, okay, I'm done." And she says, "First of all, wrong answer." I'm like, "What do you mean wrong answer?" She says, "We're not going and looking for another job." She says, "Aren't we qualified to be franchisees?" I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "Well, why don't we just buy this store?" Kenny, I looked at her like she'd gone off a rocker. And I'm like, "Because we don't have any money. That's why we don't buy this store." Like, hello, isn't this obvious? My wife is an out of the box thinker. And she said, "Well, then we learn."
Yeah.
And so, and one of the things I want your audience to really understand is we made a lot of mistakes over the next 5 months. We learned what to say, what not to say, mainly by saying what not to say and making mistakes and getting turned down again and again and again. But because we learned every single time, and then we never gave up, we'd adjust, we'd go again. All of a sudden, 5 months in, we now had the confidence to go to our bank and say, "Here's where we're at, and here's what we'd like to do." And because we knew something as simple as, instead of saying we want to buy the company, the store that we're working in, and not knowing the red flag was, "Oh, you don't want to buy the company because that means you get all the liabilities that company may have."
Mhm.
But when we came in and we said, "We've been given an opportunity to become franchisees, so we're looking at starting our own company to buy the assets of those two of the store." That then the bank's like, "Okay, let's take a look." And we actually ended up buying both of the stores that my franchisee had for sale, and we got 100% financing. Took no money of our own to do it. And at
Wow.
the age of 23, we're now franchisees, and it's like, oh, it's like
Wow.
we've got it made.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Now we started making pretty good money, or what we thought it was at the time, but our mindset, or what's called a blueprint, we started spending more money than we were earning. And Kenny, I know you've probably never heard of anybody who's ever done that before,
No.
right? No
Come
one.
on, man.
No.
No, no. Get out of here.
At the 8-year mark, we are now over $150,000 in personal debt, going down quickly, and very, very, very stressed out beyond belief. And that's when we were introduced to personal development. We were given tickets to an evening. From the evening, we decided to buy tickets to this 3-day weekend. And we walked in, and the weekend taught us, first of all, why we were in debt. Second, and probably the most important thing it taught us, was to take responsibility. See, we were good at blaming everybody else of why we were in debt. But the moment we started taking responsibility, our life started to change. And then we learned specific skills and things we could do to get out of debt if we wanted to have financial freedom. Taking and putting it into practice, we ended up being able to go from being over $150,000 in personal debt to actually being retired, completely financially free 9 months later at the age of 32.
It's amazing. That is amazing. Wow. What a story. And I really I want to hear some more because I think there are probably a lot of lessons, a lot of other lessons in there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
i- i- you talk about a little bit that experience and knowledge may not be as important. Was this something that you found within that period that, or was the experience really important to you, or what was the key that really, one of the keys? I'm sure there was a lot, but one of the keys that got you, past that, from that deep in debt to then being able to retire.
Well, ownership of our decisions was number
Ownership.
one.
Okay, gotcha.
Ownership for sure. And quit playing that blame game or the victim game.
Mhm.
As an example, we would do investments, and it was like someone would give us a hot tip, and if they were a friend, it would be like, in Canada we had what's called a master franchise, master franchisee, and they were actually a public company. And I remember that one day another franchisee called up and goes, "Oh my goodness, Robert, their stock was at 40 cents a share. It's now gone up to $1.25 a share. Buy, buy, buy." Now, did I do due diligence? No. Hey, he said it's happening. It must be good. So my wife and I took some money and we threw it in and bought shares. And the moment we bought the shares, it was like, you've heard of people who have what they call the Midas touch.
Yeah.
Everything they touch goes to gold.
Yeah.
We have what I call the toilet touch. Every investment we were touching would flush. It'd be like, down it goes. Because what they said was going to go up to $2 a share, very quickly. It didn't go from $1.25 to $2. It went down to 8 cents a share. And we watched this. Yeah, it's right down the toilet. And so, but it was like, but he said it would be good. It's your fault I lost this money. And that was our mentality then. So probably one of the biggest things is when we started taking ownership, when it came to investments, sure, I would use someone else to do an investment, but I would say I would do my own due diligence first. And I'd go in with the attitude that and say you were my investor for me, Kenny, and I said, okay, I'm going to give you $50,000 to invest because it looks like you do pretty well. And I've checked things off. If one of the investments or some of the investments that you did for me went down, I wouldn't come back and going, "Kenny, what are you doing?" It would be like, okay, I'll take ownership because I made the decision to give you the money to do it. And it's hard to believe, but that little mindset shift in itself made all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
And so I love, like you're talking about middle management. They're always wondering and questioning. I'm in the middle. What if I make a decision that my superiors don't like? Well, if you have that fear in your mind that you're going to make a decision that your superiors don't like, guess what? You're actually creating that situation. Yeah. So when you're making in a moment a decision, own it.
Yeah.
And if it gets brought into question, it's like, in the moment with where things were at, I made this decision and I will stand by it. Yeah. Don't sit there and all of a sudden try to blame someone else if it didn't go right. I'll take credit if it's good, but if it goes wrong, I've got my scapegoat. No, you've got to own your good and bad both ways.
Wow. That's amazing advice, because I'm just imagining, this happening to you a couple of times at the factory, and then here come the owner saying, "Hey, we're gonna be selling this as well," and you're like, "What the heck?" I'm young, and all of a sudden I've got all this happening to me this quick, but just that mind shift is amazing. So, Robert, now tie it in for me. Where did the passion for you to now train others on this come from, to write, the phenomenal book? I want to ask about that next. And even designing apps and everything. Where did that passion now kind of come from? Because it's almost like I'm thinking, I'm 32, man. I'm good. I'm wiping my brows and rocking and rolling with the rest of my life. But you didn't do that. You now have really shifted to helping others and training the others. Where did that come from? And when did that happen? Was there a moment where
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we ended up retiring for the first time, and to me, Kenny, retired means you're tired again. I've got too much to do in my life to sit back and just not do anything, right? Yeah. So when we retired the first time, both my wife and I went, wow, this little bit of information gave us that result. What would more learning do? Because I was not a big believer in learning and growth and personal growth, but also this proved to me that there's a big value to it. And so we started, for the first 2 years of our retirement, we became avid students, learning from as many masters as we could. And I'm a big believer also, don't just learn one way. Don't just learn from one person. So we started learning from as many perspectives as we could. And while we were doing that, all of a sudden that's where the passion started building up. And it was like, you know, if I could even help just one person, and I want your listeners and viewers to notice, I'm not saying it was a huge grand dream at the beginning. It was, if I could help one person do what my wife and I had done, because we knew we weren't the only ones struggling financially. So if I could help one person, because I obviously want to teach, I love training. You know, I discovered that through some of the trainings I did as a student. I just wanted to be the one on the stage and help as many people as I could. So if I could help one person make it all worthwhile. And because of that, it led to me being able to have, you know, be my protege, or my one of my mentors, his very first protege. And when he put me on stage for the first time, and all of a sudden I got to do my first live training all on my own. I had 1,200 students in San Diego, or in Los Angeles, for 3 very intensive days where I'm doing 12 hours of training a day. Wow. I knew I'd found the fit. And the moment we broke that mold, all of a sudden I went into kind of hyperspeed of my new passion. And between 2004 and midway between 2008, so 4.5 years, I ended up doing over 200 multi-day trainings. Wow. In mostly North America, but then starting to go into Asia. We went and did a training there for 6,000 students for 3 intensive days. Wow. And, you know, just had a blast doing it and realized this is my passion. And the main reason why I do it is because, you know, in my book that you mentioned, I talk about 6 steps to really create the life you want. And step number 2 is to find a mentor, someone to model from. In other words, quit trying to do it on your own. No matter what you want to accomplish, unless you're like a Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, chances are someone else has done it. So find out who did it and learn from them. But the second part of that, Kenny, which answers the one other question you had, is you also ask yourself, who could I be a mentor to? Who could I be a model? And the first thing that comes up from students when I ask them this question is they'll go, but Robert, I haven't done what you've done. I haven't done this. I haven't accomplished that. I can't mentor anybody. And that's where I say, no, that's absolutely not true. See, some of our hardest times, and this is what a lot of people don't realize, they go through hard times and they get ashamed of it. They get beat down and they use it as a way to detract from who they are. But so those times that you've gone through can end up being some of the greatest gifts you can give this world, in my opinion. Wow. And so it's asking yourself, well, what trauma did I go through that I got through, and I've gained experience from it. If I could help one person get through that trauma with a little less trauma, would it make it all worthwhile? So that's where I'm always doing is, and I was doing a training the other day for one of my mentoring students. I was a guest trainer for him, and someone was trying to be, on the chat. They wouldn't come on screen. They were trying to just disturb the crap from the thing. Like, well, if you are a millionaire, why do you have to charge for your mentoring? Thinking he was going to disrupt me. Right. And I just, instead of in that moment, I had the choice. I could have gone like, oh, and, either had them disconnected or whatever. But I said, hey, great question, DC. And here's what I'm going to say. I mentor a lot of people for free. But here's what I've realized in the past. Unless you've got skin in the game, most people, if you mentor them for free, won't ever utilize what you're teaching them. Exactly. And then I went on with the training. And he tried another way of getting at me. And I'm just like, hey, another great question. And after about 3 questions, he saw he wasn't going to rattle me. And, when I was teaching my mentoring student afterwards, because we debriefed his training, he said, wow, he said, why did you choose to handle him that way? He said, I would have just disconnected him from the call. And I said, because that's what he wants. And you don't know what's going on in his life or their life.
Exactly. Yes.
So you've just got to come with your, if you're authentic and why you're doing what you're doing, why would something like that upset you?
Yeah. Yeah.
No?
Amazing. And what an amazing story. I love it. I'm going to say something because I know you won't, because as outgoing as you are, you're also enormously humble, in my opinion. And I'm sure I'm right about that. So I think that this is the perfect storm for you, how everything came together, because you're enormously charismatic and enormously caring and so well-spoken and so funny too. And you add those ingredients together with you sharing the great experiences that you and your wife had. how could that not help people? And so I firmly believe you were led, led down this path, and with all these gifts that you're now using,
Agreed.
to
Agreed.
help everybody else. That is just, it's amazing. It is really
But
amazing.
may I say something to that though, Kenny?
Of
Is
course.
I don't want people, because especially with social media, it's a love-hate relationship I have with social media, because you see all these great things on that people are doing or
Yes.
what appear to be doing, and the mind automatically goes, oh, I could never do that, or I'm not as good as that.
Yeah.
And I want people to understand that I don't want them to compare themselves to where I'm at now.
Hmm.
Look, I've been doing this for over 20 years. I've
Yeah.
taught over 500,000 students around the world. If you would have seen me when I started, and the first time I declared I wanted to be a trainer, I can't tell you how many people laughed at me and they're like, you want to be a trainer? Good luck. But out
Yeah.
of sheer tenacity, because I knew it was my passion,
Yeah.
this is where people don't realize. I love the saying that says, luck favors the prepared.
Yeah.
And people go, well, Robert, how can I do what you do?
Yeah.
And my answer is simply this: if you want to do what I do, you've got to be willing to do what I do behind the scenes,
Yeah.
the monotonous, the repeating, the saying it over and over and over again, the practice. Most people, unfortunately, Kenny, aren't willing to put that work in. They just want the results. So don't compare yourself to me. Only ever compare yourself to yourself and ask yourself, am I one step further? Because I don't know your story, your backstory. And that's why I love how you interview people and say, what is your backstory? Because you're bringing to the forefront that, look, that person may be a great manager, but were they always at that level?
Yeah.
No, when they were first put in a position, they probably made a lot of mistakes and got guidance and kept at it and didn't quit.
Yeah.
Wow. So they've got to where they are.
Oh, wow. Thanks so much for sharing all that. And yeah, people don't realize how much. I was a trainer for a long time myself, and people used to always say, "I want your job." Okay, hey, meet me here at 6:30 a.m. Well, wait a minute, class don't start till 9. Yeah, no, I know, but I'm here at 6:30 in the morning. I can't tell you how many people are like, yeah, no, forget it,
A
because
Saturday?
yeah, yeah, exactly. No, come on, All right, I got to get to Success Left a Clue. Where did that title come from?
Well, it didn't start off as that title. It had many reiterations. That book was a 15-year procrastination right.
15 years. Wow.
15 years. Yep. Yeah. And again, ladies and gentlemen, listen, it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to write a book and here it is. Ta-da, it's now an international bestseller. No.
A lot of hard work.
And so it was, and it was, well, procrastination as well, because here's what I would do is I would open my computer and be like, and then all of a sudden what I wanted to say, by the time you go to have you ever had that, Kenny, happen to you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. All the time.
And so then I'd get frustrated, slam my computer shut.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks later, I might open up, slam it shut. And finally, I had one of those, what I call a one-handed clap. Do you know what a one-handed clap is, Kenny?
No. Oh.
Got it. It's like an aha moment, like that, that download. And I went, no wonder I'm struggling writing a book. I've never written a book before. Yeah. What do I know how to do? Well, I know how to design and write a training. So I opened my computer back up, and I want people to listen to this. I didn't just start creating. I pulled up a template that I use for every training I've ever designed. I used a system. And in 2 hours, I wrote a one-day training based on what I wanted in my book. And, I still hadn't really come up with a full title. I had gone through a couple different ones. I then called up one of my students, because I'm on a hiatus at this point, and he had a training company, and said, hey, when's your next 3-day training? He told me. I said, would it be okay if I come down and teach the first day? And he's like, oh my goodness, Robert, I've been waiting for you to come and train. Absolutely. So I went down, and now on the stage, I'm in the flow. I'm connected. I'm truly connected because I'm out of the way of my brain. So I'm now just flowing, and brilliance is coming through. And thank you for saying I'm humble. There is times, I will admit, there does have brilliance come through. That's why I have no hair. It has not as much resistance that way.
Come through easier, yeah.
Yeah, and the brilliance was coming through, and we recorded everything.
Wow.
And then I turned it over to a ghostwriter to say, now take that recording and put it into a book format. As soon as she did, I was able to go through, don't like this, like that, change this here. And all of a sudden the book was done very quickly. Mm-hmm. And so it just came from, and it was all from my live experiences. When I came up with the 6 steps, it was like, what has worked in my life and what has held people back? And I just distilled it down to 6 amazing steps that anybody can use to take their life to another level.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And I love you took what you had worked hard to get good at being a trainer and took that same concept and put it into writing a book. That is awesome. And I'm so glad it's having so much success. Okay, what are the four currencies of life?
Well, the first currency is the one that everybody thinks of, which is money. And when it comes to money, you can either have too much money, which is called affluenza, and or too little money, which is called poverty. And so
Mhm.
what happens with affluenza, you know you have affluenza when you're doing ridiculous things with money that no one would ever spend money on. And you can have too much money for where you're set at. Too little money, the poverty, that stresses out people completely. So understanding what's your balance, what's your currency balance. And so as an example, because everybody has a zone, and picture it like an upper level and a lower level. And whenever you get close to that affluenza level, all of a sudden that's where the crazy things, the investments that you don't do your due diligence on, and why did I just lose money on that, all that starts happening. And your lower level, your poverty level, when you get there, that's when you get stressed out and, oh my goodness, how am I going to pay the bills and all that. And your level, everybody's level is going to be different,
Mhm.
and your level will grow as you grow. So when my wife and I had our Domino's pizzas, our poverty level was about $40,000. Anytime we got around only $40,000 in earnings, and this is 20 some odd years ago, not like today, people go, oh, 40,000, shouldn't that be like my bi-monthly paycheck? Right? We knew we were getting stressed out, and we could see it in our life. Our affluenza level was about 100,000. Anytime we got earning about 100,000 for the year, we would start doing those silly, crazy things. Now, today, because I've grown myself and I like my lifestyle, today my poverty level is around 200, 250,000. My affluenza level is about 2 million.
Mhm.
As long as I'm in there, life just seems a lot easier in that currency. I make smart decisions. I do my due diligence. I don't feel the stress.
Mm.
Does that make sense so far?
It does. Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. So
Yeah.
that's the first currency. The second currency is a currency that we all have the exact same amount of, which is time.
Mhm.
And I think you'll agree that our time is one of our most precious commodities
No
out
doubt.
there.
Yeah.
Too much time on your hands, boredom.
Mhm.
Too little time, again, stress. You know, when COVID first hit, and I'm watching all these people going, I don't know what to do. And I'm like going, this is amazing. This extra time I have. I'm at home. I'm doing things I've wanted to do. I'm just enjoying life. And so that commodity of time, again, you've got to look at what are you doing with your time? I was just meeting with a client as well that wants me to help him consult. And he has clinics all over the province. And I said, that's a lot of driving. He goes, yes, but while I'm driving to my one clinic, the furthest one away at an hour away, he says, I'm listening and I'm meditating. And I'm like, I hope with your eyes open, you're driving. He goes, yes, absolutely. But he's using that time to educate himself, to listen to podcasts, to just be present because he's not having to worry about patients and figuring out this and figuring out that. That becomes his time. So he's chosen to use his time. And one of the things I tell people when it comes to your time, a great system I use is because too many people don't have the work-life balance. One of the number one keys that my wife and I use that we learned a long time ago and we still use it today is when we do up our calendar and our schedule, the very first thing we put on it before anything else is something called pamper time. Pamper time.
Mhm.
This is time for us individually as well as a couple. And we put it on first and everything else gets scheduled around it. Because if you don't,
Right. Yeah.
guess what's going to happen?
Ain't gonna happen.
That's
Yeah.
right. And,
Yeah.
and it goes right in line with wealth rule number one, pay yourself first for the
Mhm.
same reason. Because
Mhm.
once you get in the habit of doing that, all of a sudden now you're going, oh, I may be busy. Look, there's days where I have 16-hour, 17-hour days. I may be tired, but I don't get burnt out because I've taken care of my pamper time.
Mm. There you
And
go.
part of that is time for yourself.
Yeah.
You've got to have for me, this people go to me, Robert, why do you love flying overseas on these long flights? Like in 3 weeks, I head to Thailand. Now that I'm doing live trainings again,
Yeah.
I'm headed to Thailand and I've
Brilliant.
got my longest leg is a 14-hour flight. And they're
Wow.
like, why do you like those long flights? And I say, because on the flights, that's my time. I don't do business. I don't connect to the internet. I eat good food. I drink great wine and I watch movies or I read or I sleep.
Yeah.
That's my regeneration time because I know the moment I hit the ground for the next 3 to 4 days, I'm 12 hours a day on stage giving, giving, giving. So I don't recharge myself. Guess what?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So that's your second currency. Third currency is a currency of fame. People want their 15 minutes of fame. And as I think you've probably witnessed in just general in life, fame can ruin people. It can, put them on a downward spiral. But yet, why is it some people seem to handle it and some people don't? And I loved an interview I saw years ago with J-Lo. And if you haven't watched her new documentary called Halftime, watch that documentary. Whole new appreciation for this woman. Whole new appreciation.
Okay.
But in this one interview she was doing, the interviewer said, look, J-Lo, you're a powerhouse. You've got business, you're a singer, a dancer, an actress. You've got all this going on. But yet when you're at home and your family, you seem to have an amazing family life. How do you balance those two? And here's what she said. She said, when I'm doing business, I'm J-Lo. That's my business persona. I'm me as J-Lo. But when I'm home, I'm just Jennifer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just Jennifer.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, wow, and I looked at my life when I heard this interview and I went, how does that pertain to me? And am I utilizing that? And when I'm on stage and I'm in front of hundreds and thousands of people, I'm Robert Raymond Riopel. I'm still me. I'm still the goofball on the stage that I'm in. And you've got to be authentic to who you are. I'm still me, but I've got assistants taking care of everything, to and from hotels, getting my food, everything I need, I'm being taken care of. When I come home, I'm just family. And I'm Robert. And my wife and I have a running joke. When I come home, she's like, okay, honey, you're home. No more assistants. Go take out the garbage. And I'm like, yeah. Because if I come home, could you imagine if I'm sitting down and maybe you're sitting around the fire in the back, fire pit in the backyard, and I look at my brother-in-law and go, hey, I'm Robert. Don't you know who I am? Go get me a beer. He'd clue me in very quickly. I'm not all that. So that, when I heard that, and that people go, how is it I'm able to handle the fame that I get when I'm on stage? And I'm like, because when I'm not on stage, I'm still the same person, but I don't sit there and go, I'm all that. I'm just me. I'm just another human being. Yeah. So that's the currency of fame. And the fourth one is where I consciously like to spend most of my time nowadays. And that's a currency of experience. See, I watch too many people just existing in life. And let's go back to middle managers as an example. They're busting their butts in their positions. And are they just doing the day-to-day grind, or are they actually experiencing in the moment to moment, what's going on in their day? Are they experiencing, the great as well as maybe the frustration? And not saying that because too many people will try to, I can't show frustration here. And it's like, look, if authentically in that moment you're upset, let it be known you're upset, and then that way it's released, it's gone. And you instead of what most people do, they internalize it. And you've heard that, dis-ease is where disease comes from.
Yes.
Look at all the research, how much of our cancers and that we self-impose and create on ourselves because we don't allow the energy to come in and go back out. We allow it to come in and then we go, oh, they can't handle it. If I speak my truth, I can't show this, I can't. And we swallow it.
Exactly.
And then we do pain to ourselves. Exactly. So especially if you're new into middle management or you're not in a good place there, just practice being present more every moment that you can. Wow. Experience the moment in the moment.
Yeah.
And when you do that, and I'll never tell people it's going to be easy, Kenny, never will I say that. It's going to be a learning curve. It's going to take practice. But the more you can be present in the moment to moment and experience what's truly going on, that's where you're going to all of a sudden see where maybe an employee comes to you and they're stressed. And instead of just giving them a answer you have in your head that you give everybody, you might notice a subtle difference in their energy and go, oh, there's something deeper going on here. How can I really help you? And I'll use the example. We were doing a corporate training in Denver just 3 weeks ago, my business partner and I, and we had this guy just arms crossed, he's a management and he's not participating. And we, first of all, chose not to give him negative energy. We just, the people that were enrolled and all that, we were having good. And then, and we just let his experience be his experience. We have no control over what he gets or doesn't. But if all of a sudden we put our energy all to him, we're ripping everybody else off. So we allowed our experience to be ours, allowed his, trusted his would be perfect. We're finished, and my partner and I are sitting down and we're finishing some stuff off before we leave. And he comes up to us and he says, "Can I ask a question?" And I said, "Yeah." And he looked at my business partner and he says, "Actually more for you, Aaron." And I said, "Okay, absolutely." See, I had no ego that, oh, he doesn't want to ask me a question. Oh, I don't. And because my business partner works with at-risk youth, has for over 20 years, and he knows how to. And by the way, he would be a great guest on your podcast, Kenny. I'm just saying.
Okay. All right.
Hashtag, just say.
Yes.
And, and he also, the gentleman opened up to how the traumas that's been going on in his life, taking care of his dad, who's been abusive to him all his life, but now he has to fully care for his dad. And the anger he's got inside and wanted to know how to get through that. And all of a sudden he had this huge breakthrough moment because we were present and heard him. And we saw him. In beginning, we judged him, but that's our practice all the time is we catch ourselves judging and we go, why are we judging? Who are we to judge? Mm-hmm. Let it be his experience. And because of that breakthrough, he's just like, thank you so much for both being here today. I got a lot out of today.
Wow.
You can't predict that stuff.
You can't.
But if you use that currency of experience and be present in the moment, you'll be amazed at what you get.
Wow. Wow. That is amazing. I got to say, before we started recording, I'll just let everybody know that you said, hey, we could go for 5 hours. Right. So I want to be respectful of your time because I could listen to you all day. There's no doubt. I got to come to one of your trainings and just to listen. But those 4 are just so amazing, and they're just right there. I can't let you go though. I will do this quick. I gotta get at least 2 pieces of advice from you for my audience. What will be 2 things that middle managers, middle leaders today, 2023, we're still relatively early in the year. What's 2 things that Robert sees that if they focus on just a couple of things, that's going to start to add to that growth that they should have? A couple of pieces of advice for those middle managers.
First of all, trust yourself. You obviously have been put in that position for a reason. So trust yourself. And then second, learn to apologize quickly. You're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
And instead of trying to deflect or, no, I didn't do it or whatever, if you make a mistake, and I learned this from one of my students, because she said, when you start traveling to all these countries, you can't know everything about the cultures and you're going to make cultural mistakes. So apologize quickly. And the moment I did that and started owning it and then apologizing sincerely, that's when things change. So trust yourself and learn to apologize quickly. Let that ego go. Everybody has ego, Kenny. Let's be clear on that. Everybody has ego, but there's healthy ways to let your ego play so it doesn't manifest when you don't want it to. But so be present, just trust yourself, apologize quickly, watch what that will do to change your life.
One more quick follow-up question around that, Robert, because I see a lot of leaders that are reluctant to apologize. Why is that? I mean, you just laid out the benefit of apologizing quickly, but why do leaders still feel that? I think it's ego, but why?
And conditioning. Okay, because, oh my goodness, if I'm seen as weak, then they won't respect me and I won't be able to lead them anymore, which is a load of crap. It absolutely is. But that's the way we've been conditioned. So I've got to have all the answers. I've got to be the one in control. One of the greatest pieces of advice I ever got was from Tom Monahan. And I don't know if you know who Tom Monahan is. He was the founder of Domino's Pizza.
Okay.
And one of the questions that came up to him when we saw him at one of our world conventions is, how did he get so successful? And he said, because my number one goal was to hire people smarter than me. Yeah. He said, if I was the smartest person in the room, we had a problem. He said, so I automatically look for people smarter than me. He says, I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm not good at. Yeah. So that's a big one right there.
Wow. I'm going to have to leave it there. I got to talk to you again though, sir.
Anytime you ask, I will be here.
Absolutely. We've just scratched the surface. This was so amazing. Thank you so much for what you do. God bless what you do and keep doing it, and nothing but success to you. And I can't wait to talk to you again because there's so much more. I have about 4 more questions here that I want to ask you. And especially I have one more that I wrote after some things that you said. I'll share this with you real quick. So you mentioned Jennifer Lopez. I'm from the Bronx originally. I live on Long Island, Eastern Long Island. And so Jennifer Lopez grew up about 7 or 8 blocks away. I don't know her, but she grew up about 7 or 8 blocks away from where I grew up, and I'm about 7, maybe 8 years older than her. So she's from the same neighborhood that I grew up in. Amazing. So I followed her career, been a big fan of hers, and I keep passing by that on Amazon. So I gotta watch that documentary.
Watch it.
Absolutely.
Watch it. Yeah.
Absolutely will do. But one day I know I'm going to be watching a documentary on you because this has been amazing. So I'm going to leave it here. And let me not leave it here yet. Any place else, I'll share it all over the place, but any place special that people can get a hold of you.
Well, yeah, Kenny, because you took your valuable time. Remember, we talked about currency of time, and you took your valuable time to interview me, and I am thank you for that. And your audience has taken their valuable time to listen. As a gift from you and I to them, if they just go to robertriopel.com, my name, RobertRiopel.com, they're actually going to be able to download the actual digital copy of Success Left a Clue as our gift to them for taking their time to listen. Now, I will say it comes with a caveat, though. See, when I wrote that book, I didn't write it just as a book to be read. I don't want it to be shelf help that you put up on the shelf and don't use. I wrote it as a workbook, and there's action steps all the way through. So if they're going to go and download the PDF, I want them to actually do the action steps. And me being the quirky person I am, some of the chapters even start with, hey, did you do the last action? If not, stop reading right now, go back, do the action.
Love it.
Because I know people are creatures of habit. Yeah. And I'll tell you, if they go and download that book and read it, that's the best way to stay connected with me.
Okay. Fantastic. Okay. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for your time. I know you moved a few things around for us to talk, so I so appreciate that. And we'll be talking real soon. So I want to leave it there, folks. This has been the Leading from the Middle podcast with Kenny and with Robert. Robert, we'll talk real soon.